Hello and welcome to Tuesday's episode of the Terrace Scottish Football Podcast. I am your host for this occasion, Craig Fowler, and I am joined by Tony Anderson. Hello, Tony. How are you this fine morning?
Craig. I am well. I only got up about 10, 15 minutes ago. Stayed in bed till the very bitter end of the time that we said we would join. I've managed to brush my teeth though, so listeners can be safe in the knowledge that my breath doesn't stink.
It's always more pleasant to know that, even though you can't smell it at all, either through your ears or through your eyes.
Yeah, but I haven't washed my face, so there's only been a modicum of personal hygiene done before doing this show. But I have wore new headphones after we spoke the last time, and I explained that my other ones were caked in earwax, probably from around 2019 forward. So things are looking up.
Things are improving. Well, I've just got my hair is looking particularly bird's nest day today, so that's a treat for the YouTube users.
It's such a bush, though, man. You'll never bald. You've never been bald there. I know that we get there. I know you get a bit about your wee crown sometimes. But there's no way that's ever going to disappear in its entirety.
Well, the hairline is still going strong at the front. At the back, it's a wee bit of concern, but it's fine. I can be one of those guys who just got like this circle there.
Yeah. That makes you look distinguished in the future. Really.
Yeah, I'll probably need to be shorter hair in the future though, because you can't really have long hair and just have a big bald patch in it. It looks more daft.
I've worn these headphones doing other things before, but now I can see them up front. Bald people don't look too good with these cans type of thing. Look like a character in June or something like that.
Have you seen the new one yet?
I've not. I'm going to see it on Saturday, but I saw the first one only very, very recently, the day after the derby, actually. They were doing special showings because the new one was coming out at midnight that night. So I went to the Harp and Castle and watched the derby and got extremely carried away because I was in there for like 4:30 and I left at like 12:30 and I was in an extremely bad way and I had to work on the Thursday. Really bad. I've not had a drink since and I'm not planning on it until we go to Stenhousemuir. But I was, and then I had to go meet Mandy at this, but it was like 10 at 9, but I went to Mr. Basri's at Fountain Park. Do you know it? The World Cuisine. Table for one. At a buffet restaurant, just myself. And then just buying like loads refills. They had the bottomless drink, but I was in a hopeless way that I was watching June and it looked so hot on the film, obviously, when they're in the desert and stuff. I was pissing sweat. My back was getting sweaty. Just I remember whispering to Mandy, is it really, really hot in here? Or is it quite simply just me? So I had quite a visceral viewing of June. I thought I was there, so it was quite interesting.
No, I've not seen it yet. I saw the original. I saw that when it came out, which I wasn't really big on. I thought it was a bit like the visuals and the sound is both incredible, but I was a bit kind of bored by the story. I wasn't that fussed. But new one's supposed to be better. It's got like 9 out of 10 on IMDb, so I'm like, I should probably go see it.
The first one was sort of setting up the story, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I think he's done a lot of work to try and like make it much less complicated. So I don't know. I think there might be a little bit in the middle there that some people won't. Because Mandy read the book before we went. That's why we never went before. She was like, we can both read the book. I can, but you can. And then... and then she finished that, and obviously it is like a massive space opera, which is what was it David Lynch who done it the first time? Yeah, like his always got like it's my dad's favorite book, and then as he said that obviously just if you actually go and see David Lynch's one, if you read the book, it is actually quite good, even though it was slated, but he said just too much to try and do if you're just coming as a viewer for the first time. You have absolutely no idea what's going on. So, but I'm looking forward to it. I went and saw an IMAX as well. The first time I'd ever seen IMAX on like a 12-pint hangover. It was just far too much for me. Screen wrapping around me.
I think I've only ever been to an IMAX once. I never usually bother. I think the only one I went for was The Dark Knight Rises.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so that's a while ago now.
Yeah.
Bloody hell. So I imagine the technology's moved on. Anyway, we should probably stop talking about movies and being hungover and being tired. Actually, I meant to say earlier, I got up at 7 because we have to get up at 7 tomorrow to record A View from the Terrace. So I was like, well, if I get up at 7 today and I'm tired today,
go to bed early.
Hopefully I can go to bed earlier tonight and be less tired tomorrow. That's probably not going to happen. I'm just going to be tired for 2 days.
Because you come through Edinburgh, don't you? The night before. Yeah. You go and see your dad and that in your
I stay at my dad's. That spare bed. The bed's actually all right. It's the pillows. I don't really like the pillows. So it's a bit...
Just get your dad to invest in pillows. Make a scene. Stop your feet.
Bring one of them.
Bring your own pillows. These things are all possible.
But yeah, we're recording on the Tuesday, obviously, because the Scottish Cup weekend extended into the Monday night. And we're probably talking so much at the start because just to fill some time, because there wasn't really all that stuff interesting, I think, that happened in the 3 of the games. And we start with the one, well, there was a bit of controversy in the Hibs one, but in terms of like results, I suppose the Celtic game was a bit, fuck it, let's get to the game I think was the most interesting to talk about, which was Aberdeen 3, Kilmarnock 1, the first game which took place early on the Saturday afternoon. And Tony, Kelly picked a bad time to have maybe their worst game this season.
Yeah, I thought they were. There was after the first goal, and I saw Aberdeen started pretty well, but then after the first goal, I thought, I think if I was an Aberdeen fan, I would be thinking, I think I've seen this all before. I thought Kelly sort of went for their throat right after that, and they reacted really quite well. But once Aberdeen got them to half-time, they looked, which is unusual for Kelly, they looked really like just completely out of ideas, void of anything, especially when the second half started. And they obviously have loads of options now. And then I just want to come on to it right away. This stuff about Van Veen. Well, he's not telling him he's injured. I mean, there's like I either thought at first we were talking about I was like, well, fucking hell, McInnes must not fancy him if he turns for Innes Cameron when he's got a 30-goal striker for last season there, and he's turning for Innes Cameron before he goes for him. He really must not fancy him, and there's only so long you can go for the match fitness, bedding in, all that. This is he's here. He was here as an icing on the cake type of signing. You're going out the Scottish Cup. This is the icing. You're probably going to make the top 6 regardless. This is the icing on the cake. A big cup run, getting to Hampden is exactly which in the Scottish Cup Kilmarnock haven't done practically since I was born. So it was a huge moment. And either if he doesn't fancy it, doesn't bring it on, or Kevin Van Veen just went, right, go and get warm up. Oh shit, I actually forgot to say, I'm injured, by the way. Neither way shines good, and it's starting to look like one of the most pointless and disappointing signings for all that. You got everyone up for it, for crying out loud. There was a build up for months that he was coming back because he's had his daughter, but it now just looks like Kilmarnock are paying his wages so he can spend time with his family, which is a nice reason, I suppose, but maybe not what the Kilmarnock faithful would like.
Yeah, very altruistic of Kelly. It's nice. Paying for a man to come see his daughter, paying several £1,000s a week for a man to come see his daughter.
And the defensively for Kelly, very unusual. Like Finlay, I mean, got the own goal, and the first goal is an absolute, it's a riot.
Well, I was reading that Finlay was out of the game against Kilmarnock. Sorry, against Kilmarnock. Again, it's early. He was out of the game against Dundee when Robbie Dees came back and played very well and obviously scored the equaliser in that game. And I was reading in the build-up to this one that Finlay was very touch and go, whether he was going to make it or not. And if he's at that level of fitness where he's not been maybe able to train too much throughout the week, just stick with Robbie Dees. Robbie Dees is probably the best centre-half who can't get a game in the league. You know what I mean? He never seems to play much for Kelly, but he's always good every time he plays. Just keep him in there. And Finlay obviously was not in the right, whether it was just the kind of build-up didn't put him in the right frame of mind, or he was still feeling a bit of his injury, but he had a shocker. Not as big a shocker as Corey and Daba, although the two of them were kind of just going at each other in terms of who could have the worst game. But Daba again, speaking of like picking a bad time to have like your worst game, that's got to be his poorest performance in a Kelly shirt. And that's just they went again with the four at the back. So that's two your defenders, and both on the same side as well. Yeah. And also as well, you're already got a problem on that side because Matty Kennedy was out injured. So they made the decision, instead of going with another winger, like maybe going with GMS or I think maybe Greg Stewart, whoever else they have, they go instead and stick. I think it was Polworth. Polworth is stuck on the left, and it just the whole thing didn't work.
Yeah, if you're having a bad day, I think the last thing you want to see with you as a left back is that Liam Polworth is playing left wing ahead of you. Yeah, it's just everything that could have went wrong sort of did for Kilmarnock. It's really unusual because I always think of them and St Mirren as the teams that, but if you're weak like Aberdeen are at the moment, they just absolutely will take advantage of you. And Kilmarnock brought like a huge back in along there, which is really commendable. They're obviously excited. This has been sort of Kilmarnock's best season in quite a while. So they brought a huge back into it. And then Aberdeen had a poor crowd for their standards for a Saturday home quarter-final Scottish Cup tie. It's a poor back. I'm not criticising. I understand why. And the same thing certainly would happen at Easter Road in similar sort of circumstances, and has done. But it looked all set. So fair play to the players. They looked a lot freer at Aberdeen than they have in recent weeks. And that might be to do with something that I think everyone at the club knew what was coming after the game, even if we did not.
Yeah, that was certainly not what you were expecting to hear. That because I'd heard before the game that Aberdeen were kind of preparing for life after Warnock. So I assumed that meant that they were going to get rid of him if they lost, which was what everybody could have fancied to happen considering Aberdeen's dreadful run and how good Kelly had played the season, and how good Kelly had played Aberdeen before this game, with not conceding a single goal against them so far this season and beating them 3 times. And then they win the game, and you think, okay, maybe it's all coming together, and then immediately he's away. And you get this kind of Warnock, the official line is that he resigned. I think I heard it saying that Shinnie said that he's post-match. He said it, talked about being sacked. Mm-hmm. So I think it was potentially mutual, to be fair, where they've just said to Warnock, like, can you take Saturday's game? This isn't working out for us, but thanks for your effort. See you later. Warnock's like, yeah, I can't be arsed with this either. I'm getting too much stick. I can't be bored with this. I was retired. I was coming up here to have a good time. It's not a good time. So I can imagine it was pretty mutual. But it's funny that they've got rid of him and they still don't have a manager in it. They're playing tomorrow night. Yeah.
And now they've got...
And I've now heard from a couple of sources as well that Peter Lever, who's in temporary charge, doesn't want to be in temporary charge.
And we're in a relegation battle. And we've got a Scottish Cup semi-final, so it's the club that's kept on giving this season in terms of for the outsiders and for the rest of Scottish football. So, but if Neil Warnock is waking up screaming during the week at his age, probably his best, he moves on. And going by the accounts of what's going on, he's been going back down to Cornwall, and his wife hasn't come up. And if he's not able to commit for the extremely short period of time he's been asked to, if he's not able really to do that, he didn't have to take the job, man. You could have just said, nah, I'm not really up for it. And it really does lean itself back into the ticking off a box for him. It couldn't be more. Every single bit of behaviour has really struck that. And if he wasn't able to say, Neil Warnock, with the money he's getting, you add another 500 quid, $1,000 on a month or whatever and then you just get him and his wife a nice Airbnb for 3 months. People do it all the time. You don't have to put them in a hotel. You can actually get a homely space for the period. And if his wife's not willing to come up, she's doing all the Aberdeen stuff at the start. She's not even fucking coming. Why does she care? where he's managing. It's utterly just bizarre scenario. Watching his behaviour at the end there and all the players getting a wing and the fans all celebrating and then because they know what's coming after it, that was sort of like Aberdeen for this game.
It was like that kind of like they knew that a parting of ways was coming, so it was just like, it's all right then. I can imagine Aberdeen team were like that because, like, everybody's kind of heard that they took against Warnock quite quickly. It kind of quickly lost the dressing room there. It was quite evident for some of the performances on the park, some of what he was saying in post-match pressers, and I can imagine that's just easy enough to tell the squad beforehand, let it be known like this is his last game. So it's just like, all right, great, let's start playing again. Let's. I actually said that, like, I thought that Aberdeen would stay up because there would be a performance or two eventually where the players just go, right, forget him, let's just do it so that we aren't relegating ourselves. Like, Bojan Miovski wanting to move in the summer, it's not going to be a good look if he doesn't score for the final 3 months of the season and his team's relegated. Graham Shinney won't want to be relegated. There's loads of guys in the team that they'll have to think about not only their own personal pride but their own futures as well, and the fact that will be impacted by being on the team that gets Aberdeen relegated after what was it, Aberdeen formed like 1903, I think, like after 121 years, like you're finally relegated and you're the players that do that.
Especially Shinney, who's like really revered.
You wouldn't want to do that. So the breaking up certainly brought about the best in well, certainly the Aberdeen players as well. We should probably look at some of them. I mean, I think that, to be fair to Warnock, I think he got his tactics right for this one. They weren't as... They were kind of... Even though I said after the St Mirren game that I thought there was kind of green shoots of recovery there, and there was stuff that was... They looked like a team, but he was still overly defensive in that one. But this one, he wasn't as much so. It wasn't quite as attritional as it has been. I thought the Junior Hoylett, he's actually been a good signing. Like, you can see that...
looks like
yeah, you can see that when he... we saw like what it was in prior spells, like to come to Scotland, but you can see kind of up close and personal now when he's in the Scottish League that when he was at his best and he had a bit more pace about him, that how good a player he would have been, because some of his touches and his ability, like his willingness to, and also the way he kind of makes decisions very quickly as well, and you can see that kind of that experience of playing at really high level is very much there. So he was good. Thought like Killian Phillips.
Oh wow, What a handful he looks.
Yeah.
It's not just like, obviously you've got the normal things like the size and all that always makes you think handful, but his first touch is really good. He made decisions quickly, again, similar to what you're saying with Hoylett. He didn't like hog onto the ball for too long, which happens sometimes with guys that are good with their back to goal. They still don't really know what to do once they do get between the ball and the defender. And he was getting up there and then he was driving at players. So it was just like a really good all-round performance. He looked like someone you would like to play with. You could give him the ball in quite a lot of awkward scenarios, and due to his size and ability, you'd be able to play off him quite regularly. And he's playing like, it sort of looked more like a sort of like hybrid role. It wasn't like he was stuck up front. It was quite a 10 or like attacking midfielder, but not in the normal sense, because he's an awkward customer. You think he's just going to be a main centre forward, but he's not. He was really getting around the pitch. He just looked like really difficult to pick up and play against, and he was able, and he had a bit of freedom to move on to people that he fancied going up against, and it really worked out quite well for him. And now you're thinking he'd be using him quite a lot, because it gave Miovski so much more space having a player like that beside him. Yeah,
and I think it probably brought the best in Sherry as well, who had one of his best games of the season. I mean, I can understand his frustration, but silly booking to pick up and be out the semi-final. When, I mean, yeah, he's definitely fouled. It's like, you can't believe that Beaton doesn't spot it in real time. Like, what does he think has actually happened there? Mm-hmm. But, like, there's so much time as well, because he has to chase back. And it's like, at that point, I can imagine if you just get fouled right away, and then you're like, you go, like, you see players all the time, like, go up on their knees, and then they're like, immediately, like, what? Why is that not given? I'd have a bit more sympathy with him if that's what happened. But he has enough time to run after it. And like there's a good few seconds that pass. And then at that point, maybe at some point think, right, we're 3-1 up. Like, then you get yourself booked. Then you miss the semi-final. But he's making... Like, you would imagine Sherry with age and experience would be making better decisions. But in the last year, he's been sent off twice. I've never been sent off in his career before. And now he's getting himself suspended for semi-finals because he's caring so much about a foul that wasn't given, which wasn't even in the penalty area.
Yeah.
So,
and then he's doing and we saw his outburst against St Mirren where he was stomping his feet in quite incredible manner, which was thoroughly enjoyable. But I think I'll speak for everyone in Scottish football to say about Graham Shinnie getting a booking like that and being out of a semi-final. Karma's a bitch, man. That man has been avoiding yellow cards in the most...
Avoided second yellow cards, probably. Like he's never really been good at avoiding yellow cards. He's been very good at avoiding red cards until the last 12 months.
So there's a comeuppance at play for Graham Shinnie, and now Aberdeen are missing. I know Shinnie's had a bit up and down, but he's just a player you want to have on the park, especially in a semi-final. He's one of those that you can get, if you're under the cosh, he can snap into a tackle and it swings the momentum for you. It gets the fans going. And he's so experienced, and he's such a sort of visually hard worker. He doesn't do, players get done for, the unseen work kind of stuff. Shinnie, you see everything he's doing. He's so all action, even at his age, he's so all action. So so I always feel like players follow him quite easily, even if they don't mean to, just because they can see it happening in front of them so well as an example. So he'll be a huge miss in a semi-final. Especially against a team like Celtic, who are vulnerable. You would want a guy like Shinnie in there to, as I said, swing that momentum at any time.
Yeah, shall we go? Yeah, let's go to Aberdeen's opponents for the semi-final. Celtic, who defeated Livingston 4-2 on the early game on Sunday afternoon. And this was just, wow. If you love bad defending, you got to love this game.
Please talk me through it, Phil, because I missed this. I had to go. I wanted to watch it, but I had to go to Easter Road. So I was watching it and listening to it as I was on my way, and I was gutted. I was missing it. I've been on it. Then you get to the fucking pub, and there's only one fucking screen showing that right at the bar, and then all the other screens have this pissing Liverpool Man City game on, which fucking infuriates me. I don't have a problem. I watch English football. I don't have a fucking problem with it being on. But the Scottish Cup quarter-final, Hibs are playing in an hour. And we'll be playing one of these teams if we get through. This is all very joined up. It's not just a random game. And it's fucking, when I got there, it was fucking 2-2. Get the fucking Celtic game on now. But alas, I couldn't get there because the pub was rammed, obviously, because it was before the game. So I was stuck watching fucking the fake football, unfortunately.
Livy had more of a go in this one than you would expect, just in terms of, like, obviously the set-up still to, like, when Celtic have the ball to sit in, because why the hell wouldn't you? But in terms of the personnel on the park, like, there's been times this season with Livy, like I've talked about a few times, that I've just said Martindale has absolutely no faith in these players because they're just playing such negative football and they're not playing with anybody who's, like, they're not playing with any attackers. Like, they're lined up in the most defensive formations you could ever imagine. But to start with this one, he had the front four almost, like Yengi, Bradley, Mackay, Newbley. Bradley didn't do anything, but and then even behind him, he's got Stephen Kelly and Jamie Brandon. Now
Jamie Brandon centre mid. Talk me through it.
Yeah, I think he has been. So he brought him on to play as a number 10 recently against St Johnstone, which definitely doesn't work. But I think deeper back, Jamie Brandon is fine.
Okay,
but the reason why he's been doing that, like this season, like being so defensive, is just because their defence is an absolute state. Like, not only is the personnel not very good, they've also had just a series of kind of injury problems throughout the season, which has meant that they've never really been able to put a consistent group in there. In fact, the only time they really have had that opportunity was at the very start of the season, where the defence didn't actually look that bad. But you can see this game, like Michael Nottingham at right back, fucking hell. Like, every goal is the same, scored by Celtic, apart from Kyogo's one. All Maida's are the same in that he runs off a static Nottingham. Two of them with Nottingham's just like kind of facing the play and just not paying attention. The other one where it's the second goal's definitely not his fault as much as it is Christian Montano, who firstly fresh air swipes, try to clear the ball, and then having decided, like, okay, the best course of action is just me, get rid of it, failed to do that, got the ball back. He then thought, actually, no, do you know what? Instead of just booting up the park, I'm going to try to dribble away now. And he gets dispossessed and Celtic score. So Livy did, but Livy just, the personnel in the park was a bit more adventurous. That both goals are excellent finishes. Dan Mackay with the with the equaliser, the first equaliser, and then Tete Yengi in the second half. And Dan Mackay, I have to say, Martindale's done it again, I would say. Like, even in a season where Livy are very likely to go down and there's not been a lot to shout about, he's taken a player you thought, like, what's he going to do for you? He's not really done much. Even when he went back to Inverness, like, he obviously signed for Hibs off the back of being very good for Inverness, went back to Inverness, scored in the cup final against Celtic, but otherwise that was underwhelmed.
That was off the bench. That was off the bench as well. So, I mean, we got to the stage where he wasn't getting a game for a championship team. Yes,
and now he's been... I mean, it's a very low bar to clear, but he has been one of Livy's better players.
Certainly, I was basically saying an attacking sense, but there's not really anyone defensively who can supersede him. Either you see Shamal George is now out the team as well, and Michael McGovern's.
But he seems to be rotating these goalies. I don't really understand the thing about this. George hasn't been that bad recently.
Yeah, because he was at his worst earlier in the season, George, when he was having an absolute shitmare. And nobody came in. And now George saved a penalty recently, did he not? And he's had a few decent games. And now it's time for Michael McGovern to save the day, to help Livingston on their escape act. Yeah, not sure.
And it was McGovern looking as he's looked so far for Livingston, looking very much like he's past it.
Old as shit.
Yeah, he was doing some weird stuff in this game as well, like coming out in situations he maybe shouldn't have done. Yeah, it was. But Celtic, like
4 goals, but I'm going to, like, from my reading, but Alistair Johnson, not great.
And then half, not great.
That I mean, let's just a wee peek at that team. I'm like, oh, you wouldn't mind taking a run at this. Iwata, Johnson. Well, Johnson's a good player. I like him, and so do I like Taylor. But Scales and Welsh is a central defensive pairing. That's Aberdeen, Hibs, Mother. You know, that could easily be just one of our back two. And yeah, it would be decent and reliable a lot of the time. But once every 3 games, you know that they'd be having like a relatively poor match, if you know what I mean, because that's the standard of player they are.
I think what you say in terms of their level is exactly right. But I think they're actually playing worse than that at the moment because it is the expectation that goes along with it playing for Celtic and the pressure that's on them and the fact that they're not playing well as a team, so they're having to do a bit more work and then they're getting found out a bit more and their confidence just looks really brittle at this moment in time. And you have to look at like Lager Bielk. Well, I've heard this pronounced a few different ways this season.
I don't think we're going to have to worry about pronouncing it next season. So,
number 4, Mr. Gustav. He, like, how bad's he?
Yeah.
How bad's he that he can't get a game ahead of these two?
He really doesn't fancy any of the people that were brought in, like Rodgers. So I don't know, was he involved in the signings of the defensive players? Because he really doesn't seem to have liked that. He seems to have made it go beyond where he has tried to make a point almost about them. Because they never get a run in. I mean, he got a run in the Champions League, I think, and he scored the winner against PSV or someone. I can't remember, or Feyenoord, sorry, at Parkhead. And then he was put out of the team. You're thinking, oh, surely that's the thing that maybe enamors him with the fans and everyone get together. And then he was straight out the team. But just when you're looking at it, it's like, Iwata, you're not that good, are you? I know, like Kuhn, how was Kuhn in this game? He set up a goal, did he not?
Yeah, it was a bit better. He kind of started to show something about him, but you're right overall, just looking at that Celtic team going like, yeah, you definitely fancy that. And obviously with the draw for the semi, as a Hearts fan, I wanted Aberdeen.
Mm-hmm.
I did wonder, like, people were saying, oh, it's like getting Rangers, like, oh, for God's sake, like, I'd rather, like, if we've got Celtic, you would fancy our chances. And yeah, we've beaten Celtic twice in a row, so why wouldn't you? But also I was thinking, well, we're never going to beat Celtic 3 times in a row. But just looking at this team, like, down on paper, I'm like, no, why couldn't we? Why couldn't we in a one-off game have to beat this team? Definitely beatable. So yeah, I'm a bit gutted now that we definitely got the hardest draw going in terms of Rangers, even though they've got their own injury problems.
And Hearts are in a position where they could really build up to that game as well. They could rest players to go in and that game going for 2 hours or whatever, penalties wouldn't be a big issue. I think for Hearts, they don't have lots of midweek games or anything coming up, and they could definitely rotate the squad with the run with the lead that they have in third.
Come on, Rangers on Thursday.
Yeah, you keep
more
that.
games in Europe.
They're in a bit of they're trudging along, and when we get on to talk about them, but they're in a. I was surprised that Kilmarnock made no changes against Hibs. I was sort of hoping for let's have some random young players come in, but it never happened because obviously they'll be running on fumes soon in terms of players.
We could pretty much go to that game now. The only other things I had to say was that Ida was shit again, and O'Reilly, what the fuck has happened to him? But that's probably a bigger conversation for another time.
Hatate leaving them, like people, Hatate and McGregor being out of that, I think the blend goes away. And a guy like O'Reilly, I think maybe we're starting to see that he's not a take the game by the scruff of the neck type of player. He's a creative player, and that means that they blow hot and cold during a match, and he doesn't really run the show as such. I know when he's at his best, he does. That game at Tynecastle, early this season, I know he's running the show there, but they've got guys like Hatate are playing there. There's so much, like he's got so much quality around him, but it doesn't look like he's the guy that he's not going to be your linchpin in midfield. And that isn't a criticism. I mean, with different types of players that we have, and O'Reilly's sort of like an attacking one who wants pace, he wants to drive at people. He isn't necessarily going to keep it all ticking over, and I think he's getting a bit lost with possibly too much responsibility. And then I don't know. That's just a guess for Saturday there. But they'll get Hatate back soon, and he can't come back quick enough for them there because
definitely
they lose control of games like so quickly. You've seen it loads of times recently. Kilmarnock, Hibs, Easter Road, Hearts. I mean, like you're listing games that they lose complete control of, which is it's not that the other team just creates like a random couple of chances and you look at the highlights after and go, oh, Celtic were lucky there. No, if you're actually watching it, they've lost complete control of the game. The team's all over them. Like Kilmarnock at Parkhead really, really could have hurt them when it was 1 each. And when Hibs were at Easter Road, like Hibs should have won that game. From when it went 1-1, Hibs were all over them for a good 15-20 minute period, creating chances. So they just lose complete control of the game. And like you're saying, they don't have a defence that can hold out on that when another team's got that much control of the game. So they're still in massive bother, and Hatate can't come back quick enough.
Right, let's get to our third game, which was the other match on Sunday. This took place on Sunday evening, and it was Hibs 0, Rangers 2 at Easter Road. Tony, what was your take on this one? I know you were unhappy at the time about refereeing decisions. Having seen them back, what was your take on the big calls?
Well, firstly, I was a bit with the Hibs lineup. It was a bit obviously Venti and Miller were missing, and I thought I thought we missed a bit, and I can see why Montgomery done it, and he brought Triant to the midfield to give it just like a more properly solid 3 in there, so it was like a proper 4-3-3, and using Marcondes as a striker or a false 9, if you will. So I get it. I felt like we missed a bit because the one good thing about Venti against the Old Firm is that he works so hard that actually allows you to have more attacking players on the pitch because he isn't just going to just lie back. So he's like a really good type of striker for these types of games, and it keeps you with more forward players on the park, and it gives Marcondes more of ability to link up. Even though I thought McCarthy's pretty good, but you understand. But the decisions, I think the penalty was a stonewaller. I wouldn't say that in front of certain friends, but I thought that it was a penalty every day of the week. He just gets too close to him when he's running, and Sterling does what you do in that position. You win the penalty, and you are allowed to win penalties. That people do it all the time. He sort of stops running to allow Abita, who had his worst game in a Hibs jersey by quite some distance. He was all over the place for large periods of the game, in possession. When he's defending, he sort of gave the ball away when he got turned inside out. When running back at an area where Marshall had to make a save, he just had a really, really poor match. But again, I mean, I don't want to. But something else, the red cards, I don't think it's a second yellow for Abita at all. These things just happen. People come together. I don't even think it's a foul. Just one of those things that happen. A player goes down, everyone shouts. Then when you watch it back, it's like it's nothing. And it's just like someone's just fallen over. It's nothing. I don't think the referee's going to do anything until Goldson come over and tells him to do something about it. Yeah. I thought McLean was extremely weak on the day in terms of the style of the refereeing. And that isn't just talking about individual decisions. It was just the game was all over the place. He was being influenced by the crowd, influenced by players. the period where Abita got sent off, he booked Roof just before that, who'd been on the pitch for about 10 seconds, who'd done a sort of mundane foul. But because Rangers had made 3 or 4 fouls in a short period of time, he felt he had to do something because the fans were getting on his back. So he just books Ruth. And I was like, well, I think there's other players here that have been doing consistent fouling. So this guy's just come on. And then Abita, which he doesn't even see. He doesn't even see it. He's not even looking. He panics. Lundstrom comes over. He books him. And then Mariah Welsh, very stupid style, especially with where the game had gone at that point, and the game was all over the place. The ref was clearly sort of losing a bit of a handle on the match. So for him to do that and get carried away, very much a young player in his first sort of proper season, you can see like getting totally caught up in the situation and the atmosphere. But I still don't think it's a straight red. I don't think he actually he's trying to block the ball going down the line in a crazy way. Lundstrom, which like it or lump it, it's his prerogative when someone jumps in like that to try and make the most of it. Unfortunately, that's what football is. It happens all the time, and he does that. But I don't think he actually hurts. I don't think he's endangering the player because he goes in front of him, and Lundstrom eventually runs into him like you would in any sort of tackle like that. I don't think studs. I don't think there's any real danger for him. But again, I can see how that's come about. Although I think with VAR checking it, I was surprised he didn't get taken over. I think there was definitely, especially now that we've got the referees don't necessarily change their opinions when they go over.
I think it's down to the fact that the main side, the angle from the main stand, that's like obviously the main angle from the main stand, but the one lower down, it's hard to tell, but it does. For that angle, not for any of the other angles, but for that angle, it looks like he does catch Lundstrom on his ankle when he goes in, and if he does, it's undoubtedly a straight red. But it's hard to tell. But I think that's maybe enough doubt that then you don't say to the ref, here, by the way, he's just gone in front of him here. I still can't. I've looked at this one loads of times. I still can't figure out whether he does catch him or not. But it for that angle, it kind of appears that he certainly might. And having made the red card decision, then I can imagine that's why. But it's also like the way he goes in, I can imagine that Lundstrom would have been very hurt if there was any contact made there. And I would be inclined to agree with you that I think he maybe does not quite make contact with the ankle, just misses him. And instead, he's just basically slid in front of him and then Lundstrom. But it's so daft though. He's like right up in the air. But for those who say like, well, going at 2-footed in the air is a red card anyway. No, not necessarily. Like there's like a popular one on social media, which is reared its head again with Celtic fans, with Kenny Miller, I think, on Stuart Armstrong. In an Old Firm game a few years ago. And it's a ridiculous tackle. Like he does go like fully up in the air with like 2 feet. Like I don't know what he's trying to do. Like he's trying to block the ball, but it's like in the weirdest way possible. And they're like, how is that not a red card? It was easy. He didn't make any contact with Stuart Armstrong whatsoever. Stuart Armstrong was just like still standing after it. Like he didn't even go down or anything. So that's why it was a red card. It can't be a red card if you don't actually make contact with the guy. And it's possible that's kind of what happened. This one obviously he then does make contact when Lundstrom goes into him. And if that's the case, if that's all the contact there is, then it should just be a booking. But it was hard to tell. So a wee bit of sympathy with that one.
But then there's like, with those two decisions coming so close together, and they're both in the, well, I actually don't think the Abita one's grey area. I don't even think it's a foul. But they even if you're being kind, they're both in the grey area situation, and they both go against you. And you've already had a soft penalty. It's still soft, even though I think it's a penalty. It's still soft. It's ones that you don't get sometimes. I mean, I probably said earlier that you get them all the time, but you don't. I mean, Martin Boyle doesn't get ones like that quite a lot now due to his previous behaviours, would be my guess. Those ones are the ones that he doesn't get when the legs.
He doesn't get a foul when he gets put in hospital.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't get a foul. And I mean, that's another thing that the referee sort of like he didn't get that. Like, he gave a foul to Rangers there, and it turns everyone against you. And these grey area ones going against you in a game like that against Rangers is bad enough for the fan base. But then when you couple that with what's been happening at Hibs for the last couple of weeks, where really high profile, no debate decisions have went against Hibs in really, really big games, then when that all accumulates on top of each other, I think people are going to feel hard done by, and are going to feel, because it's all happening in this concentrated period of time. So I can totally see why people are severely pissed off with about decisions, and when you're at the game, everyone already hates VAR as well. Everybody hates all that, and things are working against you, and it lights the blue touch paper when you're in the ground, and something I've at least been joined by. The one thing that might work in Montgomery's favour is this thing it's forcing his personality to come out. So I think a lot of the time his personality has obviously been used behind closed doors. I was asking, I'll not name names, I don't think it's fair, but I was asking people that we know who obviously get to speak to managers out with the cameras and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I was completely not surprised to hear that Montgomery's completely different than when he's in front of the camera. Because I was always thinking, like, how is anyone getting up for a game working for this guy? Like, how is it, even in Australia, how would have this worked? Everyone must be like, this is fucking boring as sin. This fucking chat GBT cunt. This makes no sense. But so, as I expected, he just hems up in front of the camera. But because there's been a lot going against Hibs, he's been forced to sort of fight his corner. And I think that's maybe bringing him out of himself a bit, which in the long run might actually help him and create, these things can create a unity between a manager and a fans of being perceived sort of hardship against you and bad decisions going against you. It can create that sort of like the classic, so everyone's against us, that type of thing. And that can help someone like Montgomery, who was the apathy with a guy like that was spreading like wildfire. And now the players are in, and Hibs are actually playing relatively well. I thought in this game, if we're going like in isolation, I thought Hibs played. The unfortunate thing about the red card is that it looked like there was only one team going to score. And it looked like Rangers' legs had pretty much gone, and they didn't have much options on the bench. So that made it even more.
And more injuries, Sterling going off, McCausland going off.
So you're thinking, right, if Hibs can get a goal and this goes to extra time, it's like you would look at Hibs as favourites, which is obviously unusual against Rangers. So the game was starting to mould itself around where you're thinking, right, if Hibs get a goal, you really are fancying Hibs to go on and win that. So for the game to swing on those two decisions is frustrating. And as I said about the Abita one, he was having a nightmare anyway. And then the Mariah Welsh one being quite stupid. There's an element of, if I look at it without my green tinted specs, frustration because of Abita being in that position, blah, blah, blah. And obviously he was having such a terrible game that kind of thing was possibly coming anyway. And then Mariah Welsh getting carried away in the game. So that frustrates me because Rangers will be absolutely delighted to get out of there because they didn't play particularly well. I thought they looked very tentative against Hibs when they're attacking. I noticed they would see if a Hibs player took a poor touch, not even a poor touch, just a touch that's slightly heavy. They weren't coming in to try and nick the ball. That looked like a tactic for me because Hibs are quite explosive in an attacking sense. It looked like they were always don't step out, just always go back in and make sure that Hibs have to break you down to create a chance to happen. But after the penalty, that was Rangers' period to put that game to bed. Was at the end of the first half. Again, when emotions had maybe got a bit of the better of the players in the park with the perceived injustice, Rangers really could have took advantage. They created 3 good chances after that penalty, and that game would have been over if it went 2-0. But that left the door open, and Hibs tried their best to throw the kitchen sink, but again, just poor decision making in the final third from Hibs, which is frustrating. And at other periods, and they couldn't quite take advantage of when they had a lot of the territory in the second half.
Right, let's move on to our final game. I don't think we necessarily have to take too much time talking about this one. The match on Monday night between Morton and Hearts. Hearts winning 1-0 with a late goal through Kenneth Vargas. I mean, Morton, if a Morton fan listening to this is saying, how can we really get at the end? Like, yeah, to be fair, Morton certainly played their part in this cup tie, gave Hearts a very tough encounter, which I think the reason why I've got this last is this game went exactly as I expected it to go, pretty much. And to be very nervous, to Hearts to win by a goal, to not play well, to Morton to make it difficult for them, to Morton to have their own kind of chances to have maybe done something in the game. And yeah, that's what ended up happening. First half, I think you can see that Morton
could have got football stopped though that first half.
Oh God,
me.
Like compared with the Motherwell game, where I think in the Motherwell game, Morton were more kind of out for going at them early on and kind of putting a cat in amongst the pigeons and throwing Motherwell off their game. and making life and trying to break them early, and they did, because they got a goal early on in that game, and they were very impressive. And then the second half, they kind of sat back a bit more and hit Motherwell on the counter attack. But with this one, they obviously knew that Hearts and Motherwell this season are two very different kettles of fish, and if you leave gaps at the back for this Hearts team, as evidenced in the Airdrie match in the previous round, the tie could be away for you before it's even really got started. And so instead, they just kind of sat in, and I didn't think Hearts necessarily played that badly until they got to the final third, and then every time it was just a really poor ball or a poor decision, and that for all the kind of territorial advantage Hearts had in that period, there just wasn't anywhere near enough chances coming. The only really chance I could think of is the one that Shankland, who you could say maybe could have done better. He maybe could have anticipated it better that Vargas was going to get there and was going to flick it back. And if he does anticipate and sets his body right, then it's an easy goal for Lawrence Shankland. But I think he was just a bit surprised that Vargas was able to keep it in, as was the entire Morton defence, because they were raging that it wasn't given as a goal kick. But other than that, it was just very kind of huff and puff. And some of the midfield, like Alan Power dominated George Grant. George Grant had
poor game.
One of the many Hearts players who just seems to be incapable of starting matches and playing well. Just like always good. Always seems to be playing good when he comes off the bench. Maybe stick him in the start 11. George Grant, usually pish. Still an enigma. Still like almost 2 years into his Hearts career now. And it's like, I still don't know what you are. And then second half, Morton obviously get to half time 0-0, got a bit of belief about them, and certainly caused Hearts some issues. Forced a good save from Craig Gordon, not anything spectacular, but a good save with his feet, something that Gordon's always been good at. And there was a period between and
he made that save for the corner from the least dangerous header I've ever seen when it hits the ground about 10 minutes before, but Gordon still has to dive in quite a bizarre way to save it just before the strike for the... Because I was getting excited. Oh, maybe he's old. Brilliant. Right, he's too old. He's diving weird.
He's too old. He's diving weird.
Yeah, right. He's diving weird. Right. He's past it. Right. Where's my phone? Past it. Right, everyone. He's past it. But then he makes the good save from feet. Was it for Trapp? And I thought... I think it was Trapp. I thought Trapp had a decent game.
Is anybody called Trapp? I think you made up a name there. Strap, you're talking about.
Strap, sorry, it's Trapp. Trapp. All the same, who cares? Play for Morton.
It's a type of hip-hop.
I'm not bloody Sean McGuigan.
I'm not Sean McGuigan. What do I know? I'm not Sean McGuigan.
What do I know? Fucking, I'm here to talk about Fabio Silva, all right?
What do you want from me? But then, Morton just ran out of... They just look like they ran out of steam. They ran out of legs. They've got a very small squad. They've both got their issues. Yeah,
I was hoping for the situation where the fucking goalie ends up coming on for them at field. That's what I was... And he scored. That's what I was looking for.
We probably would have done a better job than Robbie Muirhead. Robbie Muirhead's not a centre-forward. Not a centre-forward at all.
Huddy's Huddy in that game, fuck me.
That shows you how small a squad that Morton have got, though. They don't have, another... centre forward other than George Oakley.
I don't even thought George Oakley would be that good for them. The people assumed that he was going to be quite bang average like he was everyone else.
And Hearts are able to bring on Cochrane in the midfield, who I think helped a bit. Atkinson was an improvement on Lembekiza at right back. Aidan Denham came in and brought a bit more energy, and it was just kind of one-way traffic. And Hearts were still getting a bit nervous, though, because Hearts just continually were missing chances. Lawrence Shankland, remember I don't know if you saw it, because you might have been away at the time, because it was first series, A View for the Terrace, when they filmed the dressing room at Airdrie when Ian Murray was manager.
No, I was away, so I didn't see it. Then when I came home, none of it was available.
So, you were kind of hoping from you've got to fucking die to get 3 points kind of moment, which didn't happen. So it wasn't Murray was too... Murray's not an excitable enough character to make that kind of interesting. But the most memorable thing about it is that they showed them coming back in after half time, and Darryl Duffy, former Hibs Darryl Duffy, was saying, he came in, he was like, fucking shooting button in my head's broken. And I thought a bit like with Lawrence Shankland, with a couple of those second half chances where it was shoot, and he didn't do it. Both times it ends up going to Vargas. Vargas misses the first one, which it did. I mean, he probably should have done it with a more controlled effort instead of going with the kind of outside of his boot, a wee flick that he done. but you see in the replay, the ball just bounce up something wicked off the turf. And if he anticipates that, I think he scores. He took that big bounce, and he's a bit unlucky there. And then it's a very good finish to win it. And a good scenes at the end, because it's like the terracing. The fact that it took so long. The fact that it took so long, the crowd are going rage because they know it's a late goal. They know it's very, very likely to be a winning goal. And you're into the semi-final, and then like I do laugh when it's like these situations where you get this, like it's a cup game, you get this great moment, great goal, yes, and then the draw comes out. Rangers, brilliant, okay.
What was a ball in the band?
I remember that after the Wayne Foster game years and years ago, obviously, like beating Hibs and then getting hit.
Right, kids, we'll talk you through this one.
And then getting home, like, who we got in the next round? Oh, we're away to Rangers. Okay, well, that's all right then. It was good to be Hibs. But we really like this competition.
Yeah.
And I mean, Hearts have got an opportunity because Rangers do have their injuries. I know the game's still in like a month's time, so they could get some players back, but they've got some squad problems of themselves. The Hearts fans will be hoping that Rangers stay in Europe. Like it could be a further drain on their players. And Hearts haven't done too well against Rangers this season, but there was still the game at Ibrox where they were, Peter Haring doesn't pull back Connor Goldson, and if it isn't against Rangers, and because I've noticed as the time goes along, it's only Rangers players that are filled by shirt pulls in the box. for everybody else, it seems to be it wasn't that bad. Play on.
I'm sure we can get you and Taylor on here to explain how they're all different. Oh, they're all so subtly different.
Yeah. How that one was much, but it was a game
that was not directly going to create a goal, so that doesn't count. So you're allowed to take his strip off his head. You can do whatever you like.
Like at the time, I was like, it's a penalty. It's a fucking penalty. Who cares if like he didn't get the legs? It's definitely a penalty against Peter Haring there. It's very obvious. And as more time's gone on, the more bitter I'm getting about it, the more I'm seeing shirt pulls in other games. You're like, well, what about that one? What about that one?
We're all going to end up fucking cranks, mate. That's what's going to happen. And that's what happens with the fucking old firm in this country. So that's just the way it is. Just have to laugh it off. Put on the little clown mask meme where you're fucking absolutely fizzing behind it, but you're laughing in front of it. That's me with the Hibs decisions recently.
Oh, that was
don't want to get carried away and people see that I'm completely fucking rattled. So. That
was my column for the Herald this week. Was basically the too long didn't read was old firm managers complaining about referees. Shut up. That was basically the theme of it.
There we go. Perfect stuff, Fowler. Well, I shall see you tomorrow morning, won't I?
Yes, for the record for Friday's A View for the Terrace episode. Looking forward to that. I need to go finish up, put my final few things in the document.
And I might start work now. Oh well, quietly do that with my emails open. I've only got a bit to, I done a bit last night, so
that's all right then.
I've got a tiny bit to do.
Thank you very much for joining me.
My pleasure, Craig.
And thank you to everybody for listening. Be sure to check out the patreon.com/terrace podcast. I have uploaded the next episode of The List. It's out as a bonus podcast. So the first part has been uploaded to YouTube. That will stay on YouTube so I put it up last night. I'll probably keep it there. We'll stay on YouTube, but it'll be exclusively for YouTube for a handful of days. Then I'll upload the audio to this feed. But the part 2 is already available. And the List episode, you don't have to listen to it in order. It's just us talking about several different moments throughout. So part 2 is available both in video and in audio on Patreon already. So that's patreon.com/terrace podcast. And that'll do us. Goodbye.
Bro.